Now we go to our next session, or I think the final session is going to be moderated by Professor Joseph Ntayi. Professor Joseph Ntayi is the Dean of the Faculty of Economics, Energy and Management at Makerere University. As I said, whenever I say anything good about the university, I will get criticism. Why you just mentioned this university? But Makerere University is one of the leading universities in Africa. For a long time, we've been dealing with them. Well-respected university. That doesn't mean there's so many universities in the whole African region. But just to say a few words for African scientists, scholars. I'm an African myself. One of the issues when we try to work closely with our colleagues and friends and partners in Africa, all these things we know, internet, connectivity, electricity, and everything. And I have given the example of Professor Joseph Ntayi many times. Even I gave it to a minister before. I said to her, look, this is an example. In the last conference, he was talking to us as in the last example, if you don't mind me saying this, Professor Joseph, because he in Uganda, he also got the care view of the COVID-19. He knows the electricity cut, he knows the internet. He made huge efforts to make sure he will be there on the conference. So he went the day before the conference, he recorded his talk, he sent it to us. He said, in case tomorrow anything happen, this is my video. So people can make extra efforts. The other thing which I would like to send the message about as example of Professor Joseph Ntayi here, the only way to get connected with us in the UK or in the OCDs or across the whole world, connectivity is very important. You send him an email, you get a reply. Many times you send an email, we wait like 10 weeks, then someone will come, oh, where is my paper? It's not being published. We said, you haven't even acknowledged the reviewer's comment. So this is not the case. That's why I can see when I looked into the publisher in one of our major journals, he sent us the report, we can see his university is massively contributing, publishing many journals in many articles in our journal because they are really robust, they're communicating, and they're dealing very, very well, okay? Now, he is a professor of, he will introduce himself quickly, but he's a well-respected and distinguished scholar from Africa. I really admire him. He's a part of many international associations like the Charter Institute of Marketing, Project Management. He's a he's a real true leader. He's someone very open to international collaboration. And that's why I'm very glad we managed to bring him to lead this session, because you can see the speakers are all very well internationally looking for partnership like Mark and Ghada and all of them. So I wouldn't talk that long. I will hand over to the chair, and you are in a safe hand, and I will see you at the end. So Professor Joseph, it's all yours now.
Thank you very much, Professor Alam Ahmed, for the kind introduction. Let me go straight to the session. I'm Joseph Ntayi. I've already been introduced. Ladies and gentlemen, this session addresses the future strategies and approaches for higher education in the Middle East and North Africa. And when we draw from the lessons we picked yesterday and today, it is clear that COVID-19 has undeniably changed the education landscape. And of course, as schools and colleges and universities prepare to reopen, it will be crucial that they develop learning programs that can accommodate students no matter the learning environment. And as the COVID-19 pandemic continues, higher education institutions must develop sustainability strategies alluded to by Professor Mark Smith yesterday when he was addressing us. And we know very well that higher education institutions must develop resilient teaching models. And these are some of the things that have been discussed today and yesterday. And of course, these robust, flexible teaching models that facilitate learning experiences should be designed to be adaptable to fluctuating conditions and disruptions which are likely to occur in future. And of course, during the next phases of the pandemic, higher education institutions everywhere must be ready to shift to a fully online format at a short notice. And of course, we know that very well. And since today is not my day, really, I just wanted to give that introduction. This session handles future strategies and approaches for higher education in the Middle East and North Africa. And this session will provide a conversation on higher education institutions and suggest tools they need to facilitate learning. This session specifically discusses a number of papers, as you have seen on the program, and we've got around 5 people, distinguished professors and researchers who are going to make presentations. My rapporteur today will be Dr. Amer who is an assistant professor in the Management Information Systems Department, College of Administration and Economics, University of Mosul, Iraq. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our first speaker, and I think I'll give her an opportunity to speak and then allow her to leave because she has an important engagement. And then thereafter, I'll introduce the rest of the speakers. So the first paper will be Enhancing Participation of Women in STI and Business Formation, and this will be delivered by Professor Ghada Amer. And Professor Ghada Amer is a Vice Dean for Postgraduate Studies and Research, College of Engineering, Benha University, and the Chair, Center of Strategic Studies for Science and Technology, and Vice President, Arab Science and Technology Foundation, Egypt. Over to you, Professor Ghada Amer. You've got 12 to 15 minutes to deliver your paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for everyone. And thank you for Dr. Alam for inviting me for a very important event. I'm very happy to be among all of you today. I will go direct to my presentation because the time. My presentation today is something related to how we can change the higher education and support women to not search for a job, to create her own job. So my presentation today with title Enhancing Participation of Women in Science, Technology, Innovation, and Business Formation. In my presentation, I will focus in some challenges that we are facing in the Middle East and North Africa. And I believe the same problem that we're facing also in developing country, in some internationals, in international levels, we have the same problems. So the importance of entrepreneurship, as we all know, that the entrepreneurship is very important for sustainable development for any country, even if it were women or men. It will lead the coming future, especially with the 4th industrial revolution transformation that's happening now. We need the entrepreneurship because we will have to have our know-how. We have to understand that the new market that we are living in now. And unfortunately, the entrepreneurship is becoming a more attractive career path for adults. Women is still special in the Middle East and the North Africa. Women still lag behind their male counterparts. And especially when coming to making the risky decision to start her own business. She always afraid because there is a lot of challenges around her. These challenges will explain, there are too much challenges, but I will focus in the main 8 challenges that I saw after my long trip in entrepreneurship and in Arab Science and Technology Foundation. It's NGO, and this NGO we work and create innovation and entrepreneurship in all Arab countries, and all Arab countries are Arab peoples, but we are focused in women sometimes, and we found that these are the main problems that women faces in this part of the world. So the challenges is a complex combination of internal and external and physiological issues that women are facing. The first one, if we start with women's education choices, and this is starting not only in the higher education, before the higher education. Some people put the mind in the girl in the pre-college that you should be beautiful, you should marry, and this very important issue. But the more important, they have to focus and give her the passion that you should lead. You can become a scientist and have your own business. So the women's educational choice put the number of women that can make a potentially set up a business in science and technology, or turn her innovation or her idea to real product that the market can acceptable, is lower than men in this part of the world. This is the number one, the educational choices from the beginning. Always divert the woman away from entrepreneurship and from innovation. The second thing, that entrepreneurship, science and technology, innovation, inventions are concepts mostly associated with men in this part of the world, and really in other worlds in the world. And this resulting in women related to ventures, innovation and invention be less recognized as a valuable business idea. Yani if the women have a great idea, everyone will look for her undoubtedly. We need you have to double your effort to prove your idea. The market didn't accept her idea easily, not like the men, because they always put the science, technology, innovation, and the invention in the side of men, not women. The third thing that we are facing, the pervasive stereotype of women capacity and leadership. Women are always perceived by market stakeholders as less credible or less professional. They look at her that you are less professional. There is doubtly always for her. And this put women and entrepreneurs to be always under stress to prove herself and double her knowledge and the skills and the capacity to prove himself in front of clients, suppliers, bankers, financiers, and the business partners. And as you see the photo I put at the cartoon, the man coming asking her or asking, how can girl run a business? And this is really we're facing. Even in the leadership in university and everywhere, always they look you, are you really lead these sectors? I don't know why. I don't know why the stereotype for the woman, they look at her and they don't trust that we can do something in science and technology or entrepreneurship. Also, the traditional about the role of women in society, especially in Middle East and North Africa, we have more responsibility compared with the other females around the world. And we are very happy with this responsibility, but we need two things. The policy help us to be a good mother and also to be a good worker, and also to have this passion to prove ourselves. And this is not important for females, but it's important also for the community and for the country itself. And I will show now why this is very important. The fifth thing, the difficulties in increasing and accessing finance. And this generally, it's for women and entrepreneur to access finance is very difficult because as I mentioned before, the financer look at the woman undoubtedly that she cannot lead her startup. And add to this, if she working in science and technology and innovation, this is also a problem for women and men. So she cannot penetrate because she's a lady and she is working in dangerous area of science and technology and innovation. So she need to prove, she need to try to get a lot of training so she can explain herself in front of bankers or the venture capitals of anywhere. Number 6, that we are facing that she cannot access to informal networks. The lack access of relevant technical, scientific, and general business network make her facing a problem. And if she access to this work, it's essential for any entrepreneurs, if men or women, it's very important. Why? Because it will help her to develop a business idea. It will help her to meet potential clients, suppliers, and business partners so she can understand the real market, understand the market, develop and opportunities, and to understand the weaknesses of the market. Also to get strategic information about cooperation and support so she can explain her idea or her startup in the right manner if she can enter these networks. Number 7, the lack of training or business training. We already good scientists, we are good in research, but we are not good in making our idea to be present in a business manner. So she need training, she need mentoring, she need practice, she need advice, she need educations and more skills. So this is very important, and we lack this training in this part of the world. Number 8, the lack of role model. And this is not only in the Middle East and North Africa, it's everywhere to see the woman in the top jobs, that she can explain how she do this and send the positive message, and to be the part that the woman can turn for mentoring and advice when they need this advice. If we make a network for role models for women in science and technology, that the one that she succeed in this field, I believe this will give passion and increase the number of entrepreneurs, women in this part of the world. So this is the 8 main problem that we are facing in the North Africa and the Middle East, especially for women working in science and technology. And I believe entrepreneurship is always coming with the new ideas, because if there's no ideas, it will be business. It's not to be entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs mean that we have a new technology or new how. So I see the solution is start from a specific intervention, and this intervention should come from the top lead from the top management in the company, in university, in home, in the country. It should coming from the top, because the top will change all the bottom. And I will explain this in details now. Also, we need opportunities for flexible hour. And as Dr. Alam mentioned, and this is a good thing, that now in the Corona pandemic, it gives us a golden opportunity to work from home. Before the pandemic, it's very difficult to say that I need to stay at home. To stay at home, I can work, I can do research, and I can take care of my family, and also I can study the market more widely. So this is opportunity now is coming, because the Corona and the transformation of the fourth industrial revolutions for the workforce, it will give us this good opportunity. Also, mentoring is also helpful. We need mentoring. And as you see, women always have this passion to support each other, especially women working in entrepreneur, because entrepreneurship always gives the passion for the people that we cannot succeed alone. We need all the one around us to be succeed. So I saw the women who work in entrepreneurship have this mentality. They are very happy to support each other. And by the way, in the Middle East and North Africa, women are very supportive to each other. It's not as people mentioned, absolutely no, because we understand our needs, we understand each other, we need to support each other so we can go farther in our dream. Also, the solution, as I mentioned, it's come from the top, and top we mean the top of government, industry, education, to change the overall culture. And I believe the fast recipe that I can present, that we need to formulate a clearer policy for objective for promotion women interventors that have the mentality of innovations and entrepreneurship at national level. And this raising the gender awareness innovation policy by the followings that I will mention now. First, we need to make the priority for innovation entrepreneurship for women, and this will not coming without the join up approach that we can making and working in partnership with all stakeholders, from innovation to business support, financial institutions, women association, academia, and research center. We have a great initiative in this part of the world, but if each idea or each movement coming in an isolated island, we need to collect and join up all these people with each other, so we can make not double the effort or triple the effort. We can make one effort, and this effort will be focused by networking all these entities. Also, we can educate stakeholders on the women-specific needs. That is to say, the obstacle that they are encounter in becoming entrepreneurs in science and technology. Make them understand this. And I believe now with the internet, we can make awareness, infographics, and explain all of these things that women should, the stakeholders know about her. Also introduce gender awareness or gender mainstreaming in the government enterprise policy. And now in Egypt and Algeria and Sudan and Morocco, they start working in this, make awareness about the importance that the women have lead the enterprise or the startup. So there is a movement, but we still need more because we are lacking this from a long time. Also, we need planning for childcare provisions and to go out of the box and to see how we can support women who is working and how we can make her feel comfortable when she working in business and she also take care of her child. I get some example. I like this example very much. In Belgium, they make something called the flying entrepreneurs. And this flying entrepreneurs, you can ask him to help you during if the lady need to leave or to have take care of her child or travel or anything, he can replace her during her absence. And so this will overcome any problems that she may face if she leave for any situation. So this good idea. So we can create a lot of innovative ideas that can support women when she need to leave for pregnant for anything, because this is always the cut off of the stream or going of her business during her leave. Also, we need providing financial grants only for women in business and in entrepreneurship, especially who is working in science and technology. We have these grants, but these grants in general, we needed to focus for women, to support women to make her own startup, and also give her training how she can present her idea in front of business or venture capital or government. Because if she working in science and technology, she will talk only on science and technology. She will talk about equation. She will talk about the methodology. But the financial sector need to explain the business plan, not only the scientific issue of her research or idea. The last thing, we need skills in the ICT and also to train her in language, because this is a good thing to support her and encourage her to use the new technology. She can sell her product, her idea by social media or anything. And we in Arab Science and Technology Foundation make an initiative for empowering women in rural area by using Instagram and Facebook and Snapchat. If we start also the skills needed from the beginning, if we can put this in our education system about entrepreneurial, because all of us, unfortunately, we didn't understand the meaning of credit or money. We always study science, technology, culture, but we never study how we can manage our own idea and how can make real business. So my conclusion of the presentation, that while the issue of women in business and science and technology is seen as gender challenges, I see it's something very important for any country need to go further and to be leading in the coming years, because women is very important factor. It's not the problem, it's a solution, it's not a problem. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I take more time, and I'm ready for any question. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Professor Ghada Amer, for that very nice and brilliant presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to probably give around 3 to 5 minutes, actually 3 minutes, just to ask questions, if you have any, because Professor Amer will be leaving. Does anybody have a question or a comment?
Yes, Professor Amer. One of the areas I wanted to ask about, because it will later factor into my presentation, I teach my entrepreneurs using online business simulations or serious games where they actually create their own board games. Do you, in your courses for entrepreneurs, use any game-based learning to help them develop either their presentation skills, their communication skills, their leadership skills?
We make as a project. It's not like game, because before the pandemic, we didn't make the course online before the pandemic. Now we start to transfer the course digitally. But in the past, we make it as a project in the college or in the campus, that we make the simulation that this is his own startup, and how he can present this startup in front of his colleague and collect money from them if they like his idea, how we can get money from them. And sometimes we make it as a project to go for like malls or work shops, and also explain her idea or his idea to the people in the street. And sometimes it's really fun, because they meet people and asking, we are doing innovation in the university and need support. If he didn't get this, he will not get the grade, at least the small amount of the money.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another one? Another comment? Right, I don't seem to see another comment. Thank you very much, Professor Ghada Amer. It was nice having you. And if you have time, you can still stay around. Let's now move to other presentations.
Thank you very much. I will be with you by my mobile, inshallah, during my way to the college. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you very much. I think now we can have the other presenters, and we shall not have questions until all of them have presented. Let me introduce all of them. Our second presenter will be Mark Ovens. and he will be presenting on pandemic impact, the sustainable future of international office activity. And Mark is the Deputy Director, Global University of Portsmouth, UK. You're welcome, Mark. The next presenter after him will be Dr. Alamedin Bannaga, and he's around. Bannaga is a senior expert, Arab Planning Institute, Kuwait, and he will be talking about institutional governance in Yemen universities. And there will be another person who will be talking about the same topic, and that is Dr. Mohammed Batwaih, a senior expert, Arab Planning Institute, still Kuwait. And then thereafter, we shall have our last presenter, and that is Dr. Michael Sutton. And he will be talking about future application of game-based learning as a platform for reflective learning associated with entrepreneurship education in the Middle East and North Africa region. Dr. Michael Sutton is a Chief Game-Based Learning Officer and the Chief Knowledge Officer, Unification USA. So ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming these speakers. Please go ahead and make your presentation, starting with Mark Ovens.
Thank you, Professor Joseph, and yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here, and thank you, Professor Amer, for your really insightful presentation as well. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, everyone can see that okay, and we'll get started. So yeah, good afternoon from Portsmouth. We're on the south coast of the UK. As Professor Joseph said, my name is Mark. I'm the Deputy Director of the Global Office, which may be known in other universities as the International Office. And I'm going to talk today a little bit about the impact the pandemic has had on us over the last 12 months or so. So internally within the university, the activity that we carry out, and then I'm going to put it into some context in regard to the University of Portsmouth and the setup that we have with our global office, and specifically in the context of the MENA region, and then a few comments on what the future might look like for us moving forward as we hopefully start to transition out of this pandemic, and with the lessons that we've learned and how we implement those going forward. So yeah, let's get started. I hope you find it interesting. So at Portsmouth, I've broken down the impact of the pandemic into kind of three main areas. So for us, a large part of what we do in our international office, or the global office as we call it here at Portsmouth, is about recruitment of new entrants, so international students coming to study at the University of Portsmouth on our campus. And to give you an idea, we have in the region of 5,000 students from overseas who study at Portsmouth, out of a population of about 25,000 students on campus. So about 20% of our students are coming from overseas each year. And it's our responsibility as a global office to recruit, attract those students, to help them through the application process, the visa process, to welcome them on campus and help them kind of settle into the city and the university. So major impact for us, obviously 12 months ago, travel almost came to a halt pretty much. The large kind of recruitment fairs, study abroad fairs that we would attend were cancelled. Large gatherings were cancelled, and more or less everything moved to virtual events fairly quickly after that. On campus, the university has remained open pretty much the whole time, but we had to bring in obviously social distancing, one-way systems, and new modes of teaching. So the large kind of lecture theatre style teaching is certainly something that wasn't possible and hasn't been possible for nearly a year now. And then off campus, especially for our international students, we had to bring in a lot of online activity. So online registration rather than in person, online orientation. So all of our welcome talks and kind of walking tours and city tours, all these things had to be moved to an online format, and to different modes of learning as well. And what we found, 12 months ago, we predicted that our new entrant international students may go down by about 50%, but actually we've stayed the same, and if anything, we've actually increased the number of new entrants at the University of Portsmouth in this period, which is kind of testament to the academic staff here at Portsmouth being able to move their content online, and the university being really flexible and agile in the face of the pandemic. So those are the kind of short-term impacts. And how does that affect our long-term thinking? So we're starting to see some markets starting to open up again now, which I'll touch on a little bit later on. But the key for us now really is to try and find what worked well during this period. And just because things may return to some kind of normality in the next 1, 2, 3 years, to actually implement those effective tools for recruitment and take them on moving forward. So I think some of this is just my opinion, but I think there'll be some fairs, certainly will still carry on. There'll be some travel, and there'll be some large gatherings, and there'll be some virtual events. So what I see in terms of recruitment is really a hybrid of what's happening now and what happened in the past, because students are still attending virtual fairs, and it's easier for them in some ways to attend them, but at the same time, that value of face-to-face contact is still apparent. So I think we're going to find a bit of a hybrid in terms of recruitment, how we move going forward. And the same on campus. So we may not need social distancing in the kind of medium to long term. We may not need our one-way systems and our temperature scanning and our hand sanitizing potentially moving forward at some stage. But there's no reason why we shouldn't keep these new modes of tuition. So the student feedback actually has been that they don't necessarily want to go and sit in a large lecture theatre at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning. They'd much rather have that video, that content online, be able to pause it as they need to, make notes, and access it, at a time when they feel more effective in terms of their learning. And then off campus, there's some really good changes that we think we can make in terms of registration being online, orientation being online, and again, that asynchronous learning. So definitely some things that we can take forward there. For example, to be a bit more specific, we've had in the past some issues with students having big delays on getting their UK visa, for example, from Nigeria. At certain times of year, it might take a month to get a student visa for the UK. And so students have sometimes missed that online registration period and that orientation period on campus. But if we can keep that available online, then for those students who are facing kind of any unforeseen delays, they can still access that and they're not kind of negatively affected by anything that's out of their control. So that'll be the key for us. And we talk about student numbers a lot, but the key for us is actually how do we increase the satisfaction as well of the students at the University of Portsmouth, because that is a really key factor in actually increasing the number of students here as well, because word of mouth is still a huge factor for us. And the happier that students are, the more that feeds back to their colleagues and to their peers, to their families in their home countries, and the better our recruitment could be. So I want to talk specifically about what we do at Portsmouth. So we actually have 6 overseas offices around the world. So we have one in India, Malaysia, Nigeria, China, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And so you'll note here that we don't actually have an office in the Middle East, which I'll come to shortly. And the core responsibilities for these staff who are based overseas is to manage the key relationships in country. So agents, applicants, parents, schools, colleges, partners, embassies, and so on. To generate leads, to generate applications, and ultimately they're measured by how many enrollments come from that country to the University of Portsmouth on an annual basis. In addition to that, we have 5 staff based here in the UK in Portsmouth, who previously would have been travelling out to the rest of the world, and they're making the region of 100 trips a year. Myself, I previously was in one of those roles, and I used to spend about 3 or 4 months a year in the Middle East, meeting people in person. So 2 out of those 5 are actually looking after the Middle East market for us. And again, just talking specifically about the Middle East now, the position that we're in at the moment is we're coming from a very strong market share and base here at Portsmouth. We've consistently achieved year-on-year growth, which I'll back up with some data shortly. And so the easiest course of action for us really is to carry on doing the same as what we're doing, because obviously we're seeing success in the enrollment numbers here. And the reason perhaps that we haven't had a Middle East office previously was some of these factors here. So time zone, 1 or 2 hours difference in the most part, ease of travel, lots of flights from London to the various Middle East hubs, Qatar, Dubai, Muscat, and so on. And so that previous success has meant that we've carried on doing what we're doing. But obviously there is a need to constantly innovate. There's constant competition in the region. There's a lot of universities in the UK out in the Middle East looking for students to come and study at their universities. And the lessons that we've learned over the last 12 months have probably accelerated our decision making into saying that actually we will need to have a Middle East office to go with the other 6 offices that we have across the world as well quite shortly. And just to confirm, just to back up the kind of data around Portsmouth. So these are the numbers from the British Council in terms of the number of students studying on campus from these countries at Portsmouth. So we are the top university in the UK for Qatari students. You can see we've had some quite significant growth over the last 3 years. We're in the top 5 for Kuwait and the top 10 for Egypt in terms of study destinations in the UK. And you can see with all those markets, some consistent growth over the last 3 years. Other markets include things like Jordan, Oman and UAE. And again, strong growth or kind of with Oman, certainly consistent numbers coming to the University of Portsmouth. So just those numbers are just to show that we are coming from a very strong position at Portsmouth. And the other argument for how to work in the Middle East specifically is, well, actually at the moment for the last 12 months, we've been doing it virtually, completely virtually. So sat in the comfort of our living rooms, not spending any university budget on flights or office costs or hotels or in-person fares. So why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we carry on doing that? But actually, I think that we have to take into account cultural differences. So in-country presence can lead to a number of increased factors that we've seen already in the markets that we operate in, in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and so on, of things like shared understanding, trust, acculturation, and dedication to the role. So that's why we're certainly looking at setting up a Middle East base fairly shortly. And just to kind of visualize that, so our current coverage, you can see here the offices that I've talked about around the world, including we've got 2 bases in China, so 7 in total. But if we actually added 1 person into the Middle East region, we could then focus some attention more on the other areas that we think we can do virtually. So the Americas, the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, and some of Central Asia, for example. So this is the kind of visualization of what we're looking at in the kind of short-term future. And I don't want to spend, I could talk for hours probably on this slide, but the advantages that we've seen of having in-country presence are more holistic than just around student recruitment numbers as well. So there's a lot of information on this slide, but things like overseas partnerships, staff and student community, recruitment network, things like alumni, identifying partners, increasing student mobility, and formalizing partnerships in person. These are all things that are very difficult to do virtually. And that's why we're looking at moving into the Middle East on a more kind of permanent and in-country presence basis. The other thing to consider, obviously, and some of these numbers are estimates using the flight carbon footprint calculator online. But like I said, at the moment, we may, or not at this stage, but previously before COVID, we would be looking at going to the Middle East at least 12 times a year, flying from London. So you can immediately see, and that doesn't include the internal flights once you get there. So for example, you might fly to Dubai, spend a day there, fly to Kuwait, fly to Muscat, back into Jordan, and so on and so on. But by having someone based out in the Middle East, we can immediately cut down on those London to MENA flights, those 12 flights a year. And it is part of the University of Portsmouth strategy to become a lead in environmental sustainability and to become climate positive. That is a University of Portsmouth strategy by 2030. So just to wrap up, there's obviously a lot that I've kind of gone through, but some of the things that we're considering then as we kind of move out of this pandemic period. So we want a hybrid model to both teaching and recruitment, best of both worlds. So really looking at what worked, what were students happy with, what was the feedback like, and how do we pick out the best parts of what's happened to us over the last 12 months and carry them forward into the new world. Environmental considerations, obviously, I've touched on, are important to take into consideration alongside operational and financial. We need to consider where face-to-face will work better than virtual and vice versa. So which markets can we continue to operate in virtually? We want to future-proof ourselves as well, because although the UK is in hopefully a kind of an upward spiral at the moment with the vaccine program, who's to say that something else couldn't happen in the future? And where we've been able to continue to be active in country where we have staff based in country, we haven't been able to necessarily do that in the Middle East. So by having someone out there, we would more future-proof ourselves. And the final thing is just that holistic approach. So I've talked a lot about recruitment, which is a key part of my role, but actually having that holistic approach of having somebody who's based in the Middle East and a sustainable approach in that manner is something that we're going to be taking quite seriously over the next short to medium term. So that's it from me. I'm happy to offer any questions, but I think also Professor Joseph mentioned that we may go straight to another colleague to present. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark Evans, for that brilliant exposition about the pandemic impact and sustainable future of international office activity. Let me invite Dr. Alamedin Bannaga to talk about institutional governance in Yemen universities. I'm not very sure whether Dr. Bannaga, you are co-presenting with the Dr. Mohammed.
Yes.
Oh, please go ahead. You have 12 minutes to present your work. The floor is yours, Dr. Bannaga.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present the situation and the solutions for the governance issues in Yemeni universities. This paper or this presentation is prepared by me, Bannaga, and my colleague, Dr. Mohammed Batwaih, who is the main contributor in this efforts. Actually, we are going to
if you don't mind, can you press on the full screen? It will be better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. So we're going to talk about the institutional governance in the public universities in Yemen. And everybody knows the situation of Yemen, a country living in a conflict and in unrest. However, we're not going to talk about the external issues affecting the universities of Yemen. We are going to focus more on the internal issues of these universities, because as you know, education and the role of the universities are a prime tool to achieve the sustainable development goals. Our assumption or our hypothesis is that if the Yemeni universities are able to improve governance, then they will be able to provide a good education outcomes, which will be reflected in the labor market and in the research and in the knowledge in the country. So we want to explain the current situation of the governance in these universities. Of course, there is external factor, as I said, the general state of governance in the country, and there is internal issue, which is the governance in these universities, and this is our main issue. So, of course, there are some methodological things which I don't want to talk much about this, because there's going to be a full-fledged paper which will be presented for publication. But I want to focus here on the problems and the challenges facing the Yemeni universities, and the governance issues, the means and the mechanism of the institutional governance in the Yemeni university. So, as I said, the governance issues is very important to improve the situation and the education level in Yemen. And we're going to look both at the public universities and the private universities. And surprisingly, we find that the private universities are better in achieving institutional governance indicators and performance than the public universities. So first, I'm going to explain. There are some theoretical aspects in the institutional governance, and I know that all the participants here knows about the institutional governance. However, I can say that there are three main models for institutional governance in universities. The first is the academic, and in the academic model, more power is given to the academic bodies and to the professors in order to decide on the rules, the regulations, and how the university works. And this is adopted in many British universities and others. There is another type of model or business model of governance, which is the corporate model. And in the corporate model, the universities are going to apply the corporate governance. And here we find that the universities focus more on the financial aspects. So this model might ignore the other aspects like improvement of the performance and like participating the student in decision making and these things. The best model for the governance is the shareholders, the stakeholders model, in which we join all the shareholders, whether they are professors, whether they are students, whether they are university graduates, and the other stakeholders in the university, and all play a role and all have their say in the decision-making process. So, in order to reflect the issue of institutional governance in Yemen, we first reflect the current state of the education or the higher education in Yemen. In Yemen, the higher education starts in the 70s with two universities, with two public universities, the University of Sana'a and the University of Aden. In 1996, 7 new universities were added, and so the total number of the universities now jumped to 10 public universities and 25 private universities. However, as you know that due to the conflict in Yemen and the unrest, there is many of the international indicators are missing for Yemen. However, we're going to use the available ones in order to reflect the situation of the education in Yemen.
Dr. Bannaga, you have 2 minutes. Please try to sum up.
2 minutes, just 2 minutes? All
2
right.
minutes.
So this is the human capital in Yemen, as everybody knows, is in the last 10 rank in the international indices, and this is the most important factors the most problematic factors in doing business in Yemen, because as we say that we talk about the private and the public universities in Yemen. However, we find that the government instability is the most problematic area in Yemen. Institutional factors affecting Yemen, we find that the rank of Yemen is in the last 10 in most of the indicators. However, as I said, we want to look at the internal issues in these universities, and we divide the challenges and the problems facing the Yemeni universities in internal challenges and external challenges. So in the internal challenges, there are challenges related to the university management and administration, because there is a problem in the way the vice chancellor selected. They are selected normally by political backgrounds, and there is a problem in the financial resources and the management of the financial resources, and the selection criteria for the students themselves, and even the selection of the university lecturers and professors, depending on in many circumstances, depending on non-academic grounds. Also, the inefficiency, the university role and efficiencies, and in this case, we'll find that there is no collaboration between universities and the outside environment. Also, we have got a problem in the curriculum and the teaching methods. There is no adoption for the current and the advanced curricula, and the admission policies of the student. It needs also a lot of regulation, because it is not based on the qualification. In many times, it's just based on financial grounds. The human resources working in the universities, there are a lot of observation about those people and the way they are selected. So there is many issues regarding the universities and the way these universities are managed. And if we can improve these things, these internal things in the universities, the outcome of the universities and the research will be good. So we actually have got a plan, or we have got a strategy for getting out of this situation by applying rules gradually and by improving the performance internally in these universities. And here we give an example of two universities, which is Sarra University, which is a public university, and the Science and Technology University, which is a private university. And the private university actually is doing better than the public university in terms of governance and institutional performance. And here, this shows the means of adopting institutional governance in Yemen. And as I said, there are a lot of things need to be improved in the Yemeni universities in order to improve the governance. And if we can improve the governance, we can have good outcomes, and we can improve the labor market situation, and we can achieve the sustainable development goals regarding education in Yemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bannaga, for that presentation. And I think what we are going to do is to have a question and answer session. And thereafter, we shall have the last paper. So can we take some questions and the comments? Two people have presented. We've had Dr. Bannaga, who was talking about institutional governance in Yemen universities. And if you recall what he's been talking about challenges facing Yemen universities, institutional governance models in universities, where he talks about three models: the academic model, the corporate model, and the stakeholder model. Then thereafter, he presents problems facing these universities, and some of these problems are grouped into what he calls internal, and of course, the other category is the external. The internal, he talks about financial resources, curriculum, policies, and of course, university administration. Then when he goes to the external, he talks about the political, economic environment, the social, cultural environment. Maybe Dr. Bannaga, you may wish to throw some light on some of these social cultural aspects and how they impact on the governance of the university. But before that, I also know that towards the end, you are talking about ways to strengthen institutional governance, and you are talking about developing structures and regulations. And yet under the problems where you had the internal and the external, you looked at these administrative regulations or structures as really problems. Maybe you can start with that, and then we take on more questions. Dr. Bannaga?
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Prof. Joseph. Can I use just regarding these administrative things in the many universities? There are a lot of things. As I said, the universities can improve the way they select the staff, and the way they select the administrative workers, and the way they select the students themselves. This is in the hand of the universities, because as I said, at many times the selection is based on either financial aspect, or is based on social and maybe tribal or other aspects. This distorts the process, and in the end you will not get that qualified staff. For example, if you want to select a teaching assistant because he is belonging to some tribe or some ethnic group, you will not get a qualified, and this is a qualified teachers, and this is a big governance issue. So if we could improve these internal things in the universities, the university outcome will improve. And you don't because I didn't get enough time to reflect the indicators, the tables which you saw in the presentation. Actually, there is disparity between these indicators. In some of the indicators, Yemen gets the rank of 136 or 135 out of 137. And in others, you'll find that Yemen is getting the rank of, for example, 55 out of 137 countries. So we need to look at the point of the strengths and the point of the weaknesses in order to take the advantage of these strengths and try to solve the problem with the weaknesses. I think that there is a lot of things which these universities can do, because we don't want to say that because there is a conflict in Yemen, there is unrest and everything is bad, these universities can't do anything in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. Because
Dr. Bannaga, the point is taken. Let's have more questions. Is there any other person who has a question or a comment? Okay, no more questions. Oh, yes, Professor Alam.
Professor, there's a question from the social media. I'm just writing it to you, but the question to both presenters from the Yemen. Earlier, it says earlier we have both the Minister of Sudan and the Provost. I think this was referring to Dr. Bannaga. To the early session, we had the Minister of Higher Education of Sudan and the Provost of the American University in Cairo. The question is saying both of them earlier stressed the top priority for there in Sudan and Egypt and the whole region for higher education is infrastructure. How can Yemen University if you like, reestablish themselves given the destruction in Yemen? How can they cope? Particularly those two people in the morning, they said the critical, key important issue for universities is infrastructure. How is the situation? It says, I think the question is more about how do you see Yemeni universities rebuilding themselves after all this long war now? Particularly, this is a key issue, infrastructure. I don't know if this is from the Facebook.
Dr. Bannaga, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we find that there is a good success for the private universities. As long as those private universities can finance their activities by taking a market-oriented approach, they can provide infrastructure. And there's some money from the state directed to these universities. The question is, are the public universities using these public funds appropriately in order to improve their own infrastructure and provide what is needed to the students? The answer is no. I mean, if they use their resources efficiently, and if they look at the other types of finance, they would have improved their situation. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. And Michael, do you have a question or we? Okay, fine. Let me just remind you what Dr. Mark Evans presented. He was talking about pandemic and its impact. And he did say that this COVID-19 has had an effect on the recruitment of students at the university. And of course, they no longer have fairs, and if they must have them, they have to rethink. No travel, of course, there were those bans, no large gatherings, and so forth. So there are also challenges related to on-campus recruitment because of the social distancing and off-campus online registration and orientation and so forth. And he did also present the global recruitment agenda of the university, where he did talk about the virtual presence versus the in-country presence. Maybe I'll begin by asking Mark a question that is related to student satisfaction. You did talk about student satisfaction, and you are wondering whether that increases or reduces. But I didn't understand exactly at what point you are looking at the student satisfaction, at the time of recruitment or at the time when the student has been recruited and has tested the university, or at the point when when the student has left the university. So could you throw some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very much both. So there's an ongoing kind of feedback mechanism from students who, whilst they're studying, So especially during this period, about how they are engaging online, what the content is like, how the university can improve, because it's all very new to the university to be delivering these programs in a virtual manner like we are, when we would usually be delivering them on campus. And then we also have a graduate survey. So that would be for students who've finished their program. So all of this feedback gets taken into account. And like I said, it is really the challenge for the university now is to, I suppose, assimilate what's gone well during this period, and rather than just going back to exactly where we were before, trying to integrate those things that have gone well in a positive light and take that forward to hopefully have a better student experience.
Thanks very much, Mark. More questions or comments? Yes, Adam?
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Actually,
oh, Adam was a question.
Okay, thank you very much again. I just unmuted now. My question goes to Bannaga in Yemen, who's a country which is going through very, very bad times, and the war had destroyed its infrastructure, it is health system, it is educational system. But in your talk, I just noticed that the connection and for example, between local national higher education institutions and the outside world, for example, the higher education institutions in the OECU, or even broader public relations with the World Bank for reconstruction and development. These areas, and especially the United Nations agencies, which are contributing very well to uplifting, for example, struggling higher education institutions to stand on their feet. Are you doing any, for example, any efforts to get help, for example, on the part of these very, very important institutions like the World Bank, OEC, I mean, Organization for Economic Economic Development, and what do you call it? OECD. Economic cooperation. And
I think there's very little done in this area, and I think those universities, they are not using the available resources properly, and the external resources, the external channels of finance properly. Because it is about the human resources. It is about the people who are running these universities and the qualification. I mean, if you have got a poorly qualified person, you wouldn't expect him to look for external world and see these things. So capacity building, this is the first thing to start with. I mean, to train these people in order to catch up with other universities and with other countries. And I think some of the private universities are doing better than the public universities. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bannaga and Dr. Mark Ovens. Thank you very much for these presentations. We certainly appreciate. I want now to move to our last presentation before we receive concluding remarks from our host. And this presentation is on the future application of game-based learning as a platform for reflective learning associated with entrepreneurship education in the MENA region. And this will be delivered by Professor Michael Sutton. Dr. Michael Sutton is an innovative researcher knowledge scientist, and learning engineer. And over the past 50 years, he has distinguished himself in the business and educational fields of game-based learning, serious games, simulations, and immersive learning environments. So I don't think you would have had a better presenter than Professor Michael Sutton. And Michael Sutton, you're welcome. Over to you. You have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the privilege of being involved with this conference because I have an ongoing research project I'll be speaking about, looking at entrepreneurship within the MENA region and how game-based learning could definitely have an impact on what is taking place with the Agenda 2030 SDGs. Part of the triggers for my presentation are the number of crises going on, the number of organizations like the World Economic Forum indicating significant risk in the region. And of course, most of us are aware of COVID-19, but VUCA itself, the whole area of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity that is actually gripping the world. It's not just affecting the MENA region. Another set of triggers is the incredible investment and effort made by many of the countries in their national visions to be able to make changes to be able to conform to the SDGs for 2030. And of course, for me, one of the more significant elements of the UN Sustainable Goals is Target 4.4, which is to increase the number of people with relevant skills for financial success. And of course, entrepreneurship is mentioned as one of the critical success factors. I also put out a paper last year on radical change taking place in higher education across the globe because of the pandemic. And this contributed as well to the reason for my presentation and paper. My personal interest is the fact that I've been involved in game-based learning for probably the last 30 years, long before it became popular. And in 2019 published a text which apparently has become an interesting touchstone for many people on how to integrate games, simulations, serious games, card games, role-playing games into the classroom, both at the undergrad, graduate, and doctoral levels. And in fact, I've provided a number of workshops even to faculty to help them learn how to make fun to engage their learners, because critical engagement and commitment by the learners is waning significantly, especially during COVID-19. During the early months of COVID-19, I tracked a number of different blogs and the number of complaints coming out by learners that their professors were boring, that they were expected to listen to 3 hours to a bloody lecture. All of these things contributed a great deal to disengagement by the learners. And, you know, many of the professors were just reacting to the fact that they'd never taught online before and were just struggling to get some course material up there. So for my study, I had to look at very, very significant and different definitions for all of these phrases, because all of them will contribute to the ongoing study I have in the MENA region. My macro hypothesis is really that entrepreneurship education is the foundation across all the SDGs. In every country, we can see occasional rises. We see a lot of countries that are staying at the same place that they were at, and real integration of entrepreneurship in many of the different schools would have a significant impact in 10 years on these countries. I have taught as a member of the Center for Entrepreneurship in a university, and have taught a number of courses, both in leadership and in teamship and entrepreneurship. And I can tell you that experiential education, especially in terms of using game-based learning, provides a capability for the learners to do double loop learning. They can learn about what they've learned about. And this is a reflective approach to learning, which helps and has successfully created in many of my learners a true entrepreneurial spirit to continue after the university period. My micro hypothesis is that certainly within the MENA region, games could become a significant instructional method to keep the learners engaged, for them to learn while they're having fun. I mean, one of the biggest challenges I had with my traditional professors around me in the business school was they would come into my office, they'd see all these games and Lego, and they would say, how is it that your students can learn while they're playing and having fun? And my response always was, well, isn't that where you started, in a sandbox somewhere, having fun? That's how you did learn. What happened? And what we've forgotten is that reflective learning within the university setting, because it's done a lot in corporate settings, has a very rich history in religious and spiritual reflective practices. Many of the spiritual communities really invest heavily in this area of the body, mind, spirit, soul continuum. And many of our universities has lost this perspective. Much of it is about wealth generation within the entrepreneur, when in fact a balance is required. For example, in the Eastern mystery tradition, the whole integration of soul, spirit, heart, and mind is incredibly important. In the Western mystery tradition, much of the early writings in, let's say, alchemy and Rosicrucianism was about body, soul, and mind, and the integration of these in a balanced individual, and that those who increase their effort in this area will become the new leaders. So currently I have a number of research questions I'm using to drive my study, and it's really about investigating where game-based learning has been integrated into entrepreneurship education. And by the way, entrepreneurship education, as Dr. Amer had mentioned in her science and technology area, is not limited to business schools. It can be in the arts, as I've seen in Saudi Arabia, where they're teaching at a women's university how to develop games. And it can be in the sciences or the social sciences. So I'm currently carrying out a very systematic review of the different websites of universities throughout the MENA region, as well as a literature review of people who have published about what they're doing within their courses. So the whole foundation is around experiential learning. Before I taught in my entrepreneurship faculty at university, the learners ended up listening to people lecture about entrepreneurship and lecture about how to build a business. Well, that just doesn't rate it. When you go out into the workplace, the first thing you're presented with is the fact that practice is the basis for learning about entrepreneurship. So I've been able to apply a number of different reflection models in my game-based learning courses, and those are based on affect, behavior, and cognition. So having the learners write about an experience they go through from the perspective of how did it affect your emotions, how did it affect your behavior, and how did it affect the way you think about the way you think. And deeper reflection produces this double loop learning in the learners, where they learn about how they learn. But it can only be based on going through experience. So in a number of my courses, I would use this type of rubric to talk about asking them to express how did they feel, what have they done with their experience, and what do they think they learned from the experience. And it became actually revolutionary for many of them who have kept in touch with me, because this is one of the areas they specifically remember. When they had to blog or write 2 or 3 paragraphs around their emotions, around their behavior, and around their way of thinking after a particular educational experience, this was the key course for them on learning within their whole undergrad business or MBA curriculum. They said they learned more in this one semester about themselves and how to change themselves. So I want to open up for dialogue at this stage about these kind of ideas. I'm very interested in learning from other folks about particular courses or curriculum that might be taking place in MENA that would correspond to people experimenting with game-based learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Michael Sutton, for that very brilliant presentation. And maybe we can open up for discussions, as you have rightly indicated that you want to learn how other people are doing it. But maybe just to give a summary of a few things that you have said. You did talk about the triggers for the game-based learning, and you talked about issues like complexity, volatility, conforming to the SDGs, and so forth. And then you went into experiential learning, reflective learning, and game-based learning. I'm particularly interested in these 3 things that you've just talked about. I remember one of my PhD students actually did her PhD on reflective learning, and she did carry out the quasi experimental designs, and she did this with the decision makers out there, and the results were quite interesting. So for me, these are very good things, and you've given us the loop for COB, especially for experiential learning, where you deal with the feeling, the watching, the thinking, and the doing, and even those particular questions that you really do ask. But let me first ask you a question before others come in. Are there specific exercises and questions that you have developed over time that you think are very, very useful, for example, under reflective learning, rather than the usual question like the ones we talked about? What, for example, surprised you today? What did you learn? What made you curious today, and so forth? Are there specific questions that you have now written down as a result of the experience that you have amassed out there that you think can help others who are undertaking entrepreneurial education?
The quick answer would be yes. The slower answer would be I don't have them all in front of me right now. But the approach I've always taken from an experiential and reflective learning point of view is a learner has to find a way to express themselves if they're going to be an entrepreneur. Remember, they have to give the presentations at the senior levels and at a technical level. And so in order to do that, my exercises and activities force them to think deeply about different emotions. I use often a emotional quotient inventory as a way when they start my courses to identify their strengths and weaknesses in emotional intelligence. And then we use a number of exercises, some of which I've outlined in my book, to help them learn more about what their emotions mean. Fear, for example, they're getting up in front of a group of people, and the first thing that happens is they freeze. So I get them to think in terms of, okay, why did you freeze? What is it that you feared? Because everybody was there to support you. So I get them to really, really think deeply. I'll give you another really interesting example. In my entrepreneurship course, one of the things other professors did not understand why I did this is I gave each one of my entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs $10 out of my pocket, not from the university. And they had to break it down into 10 $1 bills. And they had to go into town in groups of threes. And one was assigned as kind of an observer, and they videoed it with their smartphone. The other was assigned as kind of a referee in case something were to happen. And the other person had to give away $1 at a time to people in the downtown area. Now, most of us know that if you try to give away money, the biggest problem you have is people say, why do you want to give me money? And what happened was all of the learners went through this process. Most of them came back to the class. We had a number of videos that I played and we got feedback on, and I provided feedback to basically have them learn the different tools they needed, such as communication tools, marketing, promotion, finance. And I said to them, the only rules of engagement, you cannot give away the money to a street person or a poor person. You had to give it to someone who looked like they were just walking down the street. Most of them came back with 8 out of the $10. They couldn't give them away. So when they went through that experience, and then I guided them in a structured manner over all of the different competencies that are required by an entrepreneur, because you're always giving away ideas. And from that, the learners that year that were in that course developed incredible business plans on how they would approach new business ventures. And of the 22 learners in that course, 18 of them built their businesses based on that one experience and the deep learning that came from reflecting on all of the different elements of their behavior, their emotions, and their way of thinking. So it's using tools and simulations and role-playing like that that force them into a deeper understanding of themselves.
Thank you very much, Professor Michael. More questions or comments? I can't see any question in the chat room. Ron, you want to ask a question or comment?
No, slightly cheeky question though. Did the student get to keep the $8 or did you take it back? Because
I took it back.
Ah, right. That's my theory. Okay. Yeah.
If as a venture capitalist, when I give them $10, if they can't spend it, they don't get it.
Yeah, I think there's a biblical story that something goes along those lines as well about one of the other questions, how, and I think that's incredibly valuable what you're doing, but at undergraduate level as well. I think at postgraduate you are trying to very much develop the wider skills of and thinking ability of the student, which you are doing. But at undergraduate, how do you assess some of these things that you're doing? And again, given that you've been very innovative in the way you teach, what is your innovation in terms of how you assess these to make sure that it's fair, consistent, and it actually measures something that's educational value as well as the other sports job. I totally admire somebody who learns how to kick a soccer ball really well, but should that be assessed in the same way as a quote educational intellectual skill?
Well, those were the exact questions my colleagues would have in the faculty meetings.
Yeah.
If they're having fun, how do you know they're learning?
Mhm.
So I adopted a number of rubrics that have been proven quite well through research.
Yeah.
I highlight, I think, 4 to 6 of them in my book that are exceptional because they've been used and tested, and they do assess learning taking place. So I was able to respond, and we were going through at that time a initiation into AACSB as a business school. And my rubrics actually ended up trumping most of the other lecturers because they couldn't prove that their learners were listening to them for 3 hours and learning, because all they had was a test or an essay. What I had was experiences, and people being able to describe their experiences at such a level that you can evaluate the learning taking place.
Thank you very much, Professor Michael Sutton. I'm sure Professor Alam would be having some questions posted on Facebook. Professor Alam?
Yes, a couple of questions. Mark, I think Mark left already, right? But I can't see him. But is Mark there? I'm not sure. But let me ask the question I have for where is Professor Michael Sutton? Yes, I'm one of the fan of gamification, and Michael work is great. Really, I think Michael is one of the well-led pioneer in this. Really. Now, the question I would like to ask you, and I forget to ask you this many times over the email last period. Now, with all of us going online, and as I said yesterday, I don't know if you were watching, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of Bradford University in an article last week in the UK said that what we have witnessed in the last 1 year of abnormal, it is the new normal, which means we're likely going to be conversating like this for another year at least. So what we have seen is going to be so if you apply that to higher education, I think he's right. I don't envisage we face a student face-to-face before October. I don't think we're not going to have anything now. So game-based learning, or all your fantastic work in using games, it doesn't need social distancing. It needs people to come together sitting in the table. So what is the situation if someone now is asking, how can what you do can we use it? Can you let people use game-based learning? Can you teach people how to do it virtually now? Can you?
Absolutely. And in fact, most of the serious games and simulations that I used in my classrooms were virtual. They were online. So the learners would work in virtual teams, because in the future, they're going to be working globally in virtual teams. And many of the entrepreneurship games now teach collaboration as opposed to competition. And so many of these online games allow the individuals to interact just as we're interacting now, and give them the capability to learn skills in leadership, management, teamship, in the virtual setting. So yes, one does not have to have people in a room. I was privileged to also have that capability with my learners, to bring them together in workshops, but one can bring the learners together in virtual workshops online to learn about strategy, to learn about running a business. These games or serious games and simulations are all available. It's a question, of course, like anything else, what is the cost of a textbook versus what is the cost of a seat in an online learning platform for this type of thing? So there is a cost issue, but many of the companies, because we've now moved into virtual environments, are trying to market these tools at a lower price than they used to in the past, because it's giving them market share. I mean, let's be realistic. If they can start to talk about running online simulations in building a brand new business at 45 universities instead of 10, or 150 universities instead of 10, they're acquiring market share like they've never known it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Michael. I think we'll take one more question, and this will be the last one. Professor Abdul Adam, please go ahead and ask.
Thank you very much again. Yes, my question goes like this. Conventionally, actually, our MENA states inherited an educational system left by the colonial powers, a system which divides higher education into three distinct parts. First is the academic education, which focuses on what the subject may do to the student. And the second division is advanced education. And this is to do with what the student himself may do to the subject. And the third is the professional education, which is based on what, or focuses on what the student do with the subject. Actually, this is the transmission of the skills and knowledge required for practical work. So from your own presentation, I think these three divisions, do you think still do you think that they are still relevant, or because I can see that it is favorable to your presentation, especially the last of the 3 points.
Adam, your question is taken. I think you are talking about the relevance of those 3.
Absolutely, yeah.
We can ask.
I think the third one is the most relevant one, because it is to do with the transmission of skills and knowledge which are useful for practical work, and this is very connected with his model of game-based learning.
Okay, thank you, Professor Adam, and Professor Sutton. You can answer that.
Thanks very much. One of the elements we're dealing with, Adam, is the fact we are in the midst of incredibly volatile radical change. I agree with you that the post-colonial occupation of Africa and most of the MENA countries and the education systems that were instituted are now totally out of place. Regretfully, most institutions are having to make very, very strict, parsimonious choices on how they will proceed. In North America, many universities are going out of business because the students are no longer attending them, and therefore they do not have the revenue anymore because their way of teaching is totally out of date. The lecture method came from Aristotle. We have not changed since the medieval period. And of course, we have many institutions all based on the lecture method. So from my point of view, and I am in a minority in North America, we need to turn education on its head. Otherwise, what we're seeing is private industry here is taking a much more experiential approach, and they are making much more money and therefore more students engaged than the public universities, simply because we have outdated models. Now, of course, that's just my personal opinion, but I've seen it in the learners. As soon as they're presented with an engaging instructional method that they actually learn from, they're all over it. The problem I ran into was my own faculty rebelled against me because my evaluations from the course were at the very top and all the boring professors were at the very bottom, and they'd been there 20 years before I arrived. So we're in the midst of this radical revolution in how education will be taught. And there are many in North America who are speaking at this stage about the fact that we no longer need universities of and by themselves. because the private sector can create certificate programs that have much more power in upskilling the learners with relevant, useful competencies than the universities, who only teach them how to take a test. And that's not what they do when they get to the real world.
Professor, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Michael Sutton. Participants, join me in thanking all the presenters who have given us their presentations in this session. Dr. Michael Sutton, thank you very much. Dr. Mohammed and Dr. Bannaga, thank you very much. Professor Dr. Mark Ovens, thank you very much. And Professor Ghada Amer. I will return the microphone to our host, Professor Alam Ahmed, President of the World Association for Sustainable Development and Director of Middle Eastern Knowledge Economy Institute, founder, to give us concluding remarks. Over to you, Professor Alam.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Joseph Ntayi. Thank you very much. As usual, you are the master in managing this convention. I mean, thank you very much for all of you. I will just, because I think we just 17 minutes above our time, but I'm really quite impressed because normally academic conferences, we run over time by hours, but now I don't think we have run more of time because we lost time in the morning with the internet. So I would like to thank you all very, very much from yesterday. But before that, Mervin, can you show on camera again so people can see you and all others? I mean, we have plenty of people who are working very hard to get this done. Mervin is one of them. Really, without him, we can't get the very important part outcome of this, because the papers will be published, books can be edited and published, but really the real thing is this value of the, we have seen Professor David Reed earlier mention about short videos. Really, that's the aim, is to cut the story of each of these talks in the future into maybe 6 or 10 minutes talk. But the value of having these videos is extremely important. We know that because they are being used by many, many universities. They use them, they are free on the YouTube channel. But in order to get them decently edited, that's very important. So thank you very much, Mervin. We also have many people, they work behind the scenes. Some of them, you know them because they communicate with you, like Janet Snow. We have someone which you don't see normally, who does all the graphic, really, Suhail. Thank you very much for all those who work very hard. Thank you, Dr. Mohammed Hassan from the University of Southampton. He has connected us with many people, either in Egypt or in his university. Dr. Mohammed Al-Mansouri from Libya, and people from Bahrain, from Qatar. Really, the list is very long. Sudan and others. But I think many people will need to know where we're going with this. I think number one, we will try to collect as many as possible the summary of all this conference and try to write maybe a policy brief or something. Normally the difficulty, everything you ask for people, volunteers these days, they are still willing to volunteer to edit and to help, but the problem is it's becoming very difficult for anyone to volunteer his time now. So we have as a conference as well, lots of policy brief to finish. We're still waiting to get help from, and we don't want to give it to any volunteer. We just want someone who can really edit them in a good manner. But the fact we have the videos, that gives us maybe a security, we can get it done anytime. So we will definitely write the summary, we will send it out. Number two, there's so many people contacted me. I know they are very interested. I got from Morocco, for example, wanted to contact with this professor or this university. And you can see many universities are very open for international collaboration, like AUC today in the morning. Yesterday, the Vice Chancellor of Southampton said they're very open for international collaborations. We heard it also from Egypt, from many places. So I think anything we can connect people, we will do it. Number three, some people have already submitted articles. I know we have received them, and there are people who still have a chance to submit, like Yemen, they are finishing their paper, they will send it. We will get these all published. And the good thing is, anything we publish now, if it is in the conference proceeding, it is an ISI. If you go to the Web of Science, all our conference proceedings are there from 2005, I think. And it's a very hard job really to update them in the ISI, the Web of Science, because you need to contact them and they get bombarded. But the good thing is our conference proceeding are ISI, definitely 100%. All our journals are through ProQuest, are reaching every university. I have seen them by my eyes. So if you go to Harvard, you go to Oxford, to Cambridge, any university, they are subscribers to this ProQuest. You can find our International Journal of Sudan Research, International Journal of Food, International Journal of Knowledge and Innovation in the Middle East. This is our flagship journal. We are going through a very, applying to this, Scopus. It's a laborious work. You have to put it, but I think we're going to, I'm just looking for the last year for someone to finish some of these journals with the Scopus, because the problem in the Middle East and Africa, or all over the world, all universities, they want you to publish on Scopus ranked journals. All of them, they ask for this. And we know we have all the criteria. We discussed this with Amer. I mean, we have journals already because the Scopus status. But we are doing that. We're going to be doing, I have seen Ihab Tawfiq from the other journal of the food. He already started inviting more to the editorial board. We need to really revitalize the editorial board. We have many people lined up. We need to put them, really, we need to benefit them at a higher level. They have been extremely helpful to the work we do in the journal, like Professor Joseph, but we really want him to get into the editorial board to now take a role in helping. I think we're going to do all that. There's many people, we have them, Mohammed Hassan in the other journal. We need people to take, even myself, I'm getting really exhausted. So we're going to do that as soon as possible. The other thing also, all these videos, Mervin started from yesterday, which is very fast, really. But every session will be in a long video uploaded to the website, cleaned. And then Mervin will go through each talk and cut it separately. So like today, just a session we finished, you will have a one video, maybe 20 minutes for, say, Dr. Michael Sutton. You have another one, say, for Mark, for Yemen paper. This is how we've been doing. And I think it's been very successful and it's proven very useful. We have been doing this. It's a very hard job and it's a very expensive job, really, time and money. But we realize the benefit of that. So we're going to be seeking, I don't know how long we're going to be locked, but for the next 3-4 months, we're doing as much as possible to get all these video clean. But that's where you will see all these videos, and I'm sure they all recorded very well. The other quick points, we couldn't announce it because I didn't get the official email from Scholar One. I'm sure you all know Scholar One, but Scholar One, we're going to have a memorandum of understanding between WAST and Scholar One Corporation in the US to partner together to spread or to try to get as many as possible journals in the Middle East and North Africa into Scholar One. And I think that will be a tremendous change, because if the journal is using Scholar One, that will get it will bring them or give them a big uplift to try to use the standards international way of managing the journals. And Scholar One is very much connected with the reference style, the same, which is used by the big names like Emerald, Oxford, and all of these. So yes, in principle we agreed, but the manager or the director of the Scholar One in London or in the UK, he was on holiday, so he emailed me. He said he will try to get it done. But I haven't received it today. But in principle, yes, we're going to be officially announcing this, and I think we will expand it not just to North Africa, but to the entire Africa. We have you in mind, Professor Joseph. Universities like yours, if you do any journals, why not we try to see? The only problem with the Scholar One, not with the Scholar One, but it is a commercial product which we have to find money for it. But we will try to do our best to try to help in getting as many journals using Scholar One, which will uplift the journals in the Middle East and North Africa. But as I said, we are very keen on Africa because we are well spread into up to the way to South Africa. One of our key founders is South Africa, University from South Africa, Professor Linty Louis. I think we need to get that to them. The other thing, we will keep you updated. We don't just run a conference. We always do this by demand. Last time the demand was online learning, and we have a fantastic conference. Many people email me. I don't even know them, just watching the videos. Ron was there, I remember, in the last one. Now we have done this because people, they really want to talk about the future of the higher education, particularly the new normal now is online learning. You have seen yourself this morning, the minister herself, she's struggling with internet. Yesterday, one of the speakers from Egypt, the line cut. We had someone from the ministry yesterday struggling. I remember also we had a professor from Cairo University the other day. Also, she had a problem. You can see the Middle East is really struggling with the internet. So, and this is the new normal, is online. So we're really going to be doing lots of effort of this. I can tell you now what is next in our agenda, because we can see that many countries speak about this, is artificial intelligence and data science, particularly artificial intelligence. We do have experts in this, interestingly, from the Middle East, but we're going to focus on this. We are learning every time how to make the best out of this environment, not just necessarily the Zoom, but to use it to our best. And I think we manage to learn every time. So the more we're learning, the more we manage. Now, everything you have seen here is being broadcast in 8 different social media. I already got huge feedback on, I'm being circulating it. Every time you see me on the phone, I'm sending messages to the minister, to the others who have been speaking on yesterday and today, because that I can't really manage everything. Many things come from the social media as well. So that's the other thing. We are being very keen on helping more practically. We got many people from our advisory board, from those who really started this work a long time ago. And many people have asked for their expertise, and we're going to make this available as much as possible. So we are looking at different partnerships with universities, try to see how can WASD or the Middle East deliver programs to universities remotely. So like Michael said, you could be teaching a course to an MBA program, and students will be formal. He's here now, he could have been teaching, Ron, Alam, anyone. There's so many people in our network interested. The one thing I want you really to make the benefit of it, we are very well connected with many institutions in the Middle East. So if any institution, I know many people are watching us now, interested to have a robust connections with institutions in the Middle East, yes, we are. We will do our best. And I think finally, the concluding comment, I think I learned, I was expecting it, the major challenge facing the Middle East higher education institutions and the future of the higher education is really the infrastructure. And with the infrastructure, I think the internet will come in the middle of that. I was surprised, but not shocked, when the minister from Libya yesterday said, many universities in Libya, they don't even have toilets and they don't have drinking water. And then we asked a question to the professor from South Carolina yesterday, and he said, if a university does not have a toilet, it should be closed. Not because that's the American standard, but I think that's the standard you expect. How come you teach a student, they do not have a place, there is no toilet? This is something I have seen in Sudan, in many countries. In the same opposite, or in the same, if you flip the coin, I visited a university in Tunisia, at the very end of Tunisia, and you just have to cross to Italy. Italy is like half an hour from there. You just cross the Mediterranean. This is called Janduba, which is one of our partners. In that very far part of Tunisia, they have a good infrastructure. Even we had lunch in the students' canteen. The vice chancellor wanted to show us a real experience of a university in the middle of, I'm not saying a desert, but it's very remote place. They have reasonable human environment, if you like. Girls and boys, they have everything. So for you to be shocked to see in big cities in Middle East, a university does not have a drinkable water. It's true, I have seen them. So I think the issue of infrastructure is not just about the laboratories or what we have seen yesterday from Southampton, a multi-million investment in an excellent engineering labs, but the very basic water. I know it's shocking, but water is not available in many universities in the Middle East. And that's why no wonder you can see in the ranking of universities, those in rich countries are very high now, like Qatar. Who is leading now? Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE. And they all by nature, they invest. It's not just they have the money, but I think they are investing in higher education. But those old ones, they are not investing. So I think that's something also, so the infrastructure is critical. And I think the internet, definitely governments, I think this is a government policy, need to consider this. Because I don't believe at all, I mean, I have written many times on ICT in Africa, in the Middle East, Even now we are working on a paper on e-learning in the whole Middle East. We are reviewing lots of articles. I don't believe you cannot, or you cannot find a reasonable internet in every university in the Middle East. Why? Because if you go to a country, so Tunisia, Sudan, Morocco, whatever it is, Egypt, for example, if you go to any big private sector entity, you will have first-class internet there. In the same country, the same city. So if you go to Sudan, to big companies for where we did the project on public-private partnership, you enter the building, you immediately have the WhatsApp, so you can have the, the Wi-Fi, and you are perfectly working. It's a working environment. You just go outside to a university, there's no internet. So it's not the lack of availability in the city, but they don't seem to understand and appreciate the importance of investing on their internet. And what we are arguing for universities in the Middle East is just basic connectivity, something like you can talk to people, so something you can get a professor from the UK or America to deliver a talk to students through Zoom. We're not really asking about advanced internet or broadband capability like here in the UK. And I said this before, and many African professors, they were unhappy with my statement, which I brought from Africa at that time. I gave, in one of the conferences about Africa, I gave a short slide where I took a quotation from the African Universities Association, which is a big association bringing all African universities together. What was the Secretary General at that time saying? Saying the broadband in an average African university is 50% less than what on the broadband someone enjoy in his household, like mine. I am in my house now. So the broadband, the quality or the speed I have here in my house is double the speed an average university in Africa is having. But again, I am paying 50% than what the African university is paying. So it's very expensive and it's not very fast. So when I brought that quotation, many African universities, I remember in Kenya in particular, they said to me, no, you didn't come to Kenya, you didn't see. I said, but this is an average university. This is a quotation from your own African University Association. So there are still universities, many of them in Middle East and North Africa struggling. And I don't think the issue of lack of internet there, but they don't really invest on it. They need to pay money for this internet. They need to understand it's very important. So that's the key issue I think we're going to be doing. The final thing is with infrastructure, no one is expected a high quality, top of the range buildings and infrastructure like what I have seen in UAE or in Qatar. I visited the Doha Institute where Dr. Hind yesterday was talking. First class facilities, everything. Is more of a, in our, here in the UK is considered first class or VIP, if you like building. But no one is expecting that, but expected a reasonable infrastructure. And in that infrastructure, what we have always been arguing for the Middle East universities and research institution, please spend on a basic item called generators. Just buy it, Honda, whatever it is. It costs millions, yes, but it's not that very expensive when you compare to the budget of an institution. Have it supply at least a couple of classrooms, the dean office, staff room, library, because that's what is the case. Electricity is a major problem in Africa. There's no question about that. The major challenge for development in Africa is electricity. So this is an issue really higher education they need to consider. I don't want to go along with the list, but that's really some of the key things. I think they have been reinforced or re-emphasized by most of you. I would like to thank you all. We learned a lot, and I'm sure when you see all, whether the proceeding on the video library, now we are becoming more innovative, creating what we call it video library, where you can open the PDF, and really we have been very good in doing this, but it just needs times. You will see the lecture as videos actually with small notes, so you can actually have it as a PDF, send it to anyone. He or she will just click and enjoy the lectures of everything. Plus, we are moving further up to enhance the bio of everyone, because I think the fact now, you know, Michael Sutton, you know, Ron, you know, Joseph, you know, whoever it is you have known from yesterday, the fact you know this person, his background, you can easily then connect easily. You don't need to come back to us. So that is something we really need to enhance. To see Mike Sutton, see his talk, see his books, see his workshops, see his videos in one place. So we are trying to leverage the technology as much as possible. We are pushing as much as possible to try to use what we have here in abundance to help those in scarcity. So I would like to thank you. I would like to just say good afternoon. Enjoy the rest of today. We are in London. It is the afternoon. I see in America in the morning. Those in the Middle East already going into the early evening. Those in Malaysia, I know they are already nearly going to bed now, 10 o'clock or something. And some are already sleeping, I know them. Like in Indonesia, they are just about to wake up. So thank you very much. All the best. We'll get back in touch with you. And I'm sure once we get the videos, we will send them to you. We will send you a certificate of your participation, definitely. And I think we will definitely need to spend more time sending you a proper letter, because I think you all need to be acknowledged formally by a letter, whatever that letter will use for. But I think you have given lots of time. Thank you all to all the track chair, the moderators, the rapporteurs, everyone. There's many people who help. And thank you very much to, who else I forget to mention? Anyone, even for the viewers, those who send us the comments, the critical question we receive, we want to assure you we have them in the Facebook. We don't delete them. Those we failed to send them to speaker at the time, we normally share with them. And I think we need to say goodbye now. Mervyn, can we have this for this session? Because there's 3 speakers here. Can we have a picture for this? Anyone who want to join, he can show his screen. We can just have a final one for those last session, please.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.